Cheat on me? I will destroy your cushy life. Before I get into the revenge, let me preface it by saying this: the third party involved and I are still friends, and still talk to this day. Also, English is not my first language, but I'm working on it. This happened a little over a decade ago, and I had the perfect life: great house, great husband, great car, great job. The American dream. Soon, that dream turned into a nightmare, when I discovered my husband was cheating on me. It started small, basically the typical signs: coming home late, ignoring attempts to get intimate, making excuses, etc. Then, one day, I had a notion to go through his phone. Huge mistake on my part. Not only was he cheating on me, but he was doing so with a guy. I'm okay with the LGBT community, and I don't have a problem with my husband wanting to explore other sides. The problem is that he didn't have the ahem to tell me what he was doing. I had located the other guy, and we became fast friends. I found out, via the guy, that my husband had a Grindr, gay dating app, and had HK'd up with more guys. Together, the other guy and I came up with a plan. He had successfully deceived my husband into agreeing to spend the night in a hotel room so that he could have alone time. In the process, he had gathered some very incriminating evidence of my husband's, what's the word for not being faithful? And thanks to my father, I had a prenup that terminated marriage of said lack of faithfulness had evidence. In the process, he had gathered some very incriminating evidence of my husband's, what's the word for not being faithful? While I was taking cover in the restroom, my idiot ex-husband came walking through the door. My dope was impressed with how effectively the other man was playing his role because he told him he was going to the toilet to clean up. At that point, I presented the proof, which included the prenuptial agreement and the highlighted portion of the contract. I warned him that I was going to collect everything, and that he was finished. He got away in a hurry. The repercussions: when I brought him to court for the divorce proceedings, I asked that I get the home and his vehicle since it was in my name. Since it was in my name, I was entitled to have both. I was the principal income for our family because of Daddy Dearest, so I was able to get what I wanted and preserve my possessions. Thank you, Daddy Dearest. He was left with nothing except his old Nissan and the clothing he was wearing. He had attempted to reconcile his relationship with the other man, who is now one of my closest friends, but it had been unsuccessful. In the end, my ex-boyfriend was forced to move back in with his parents. The last I heard, he was working at Target, but I don't really care about that anymore. There is no greater source of rage than a Latina who has been insulted. Story 2. My 38 male, fourth long-term relationship is failing, and this time I'm engaged, so it feels like a midlife crisis and time for serious self-reflection. I, 38 male, have been in 8 committed relationships in my life, and 4 of them have lasted for more than 3 years. I've never been married and do not have any kids. Typically my exes wanted the relationship to continue and to settle down with me, but I've never been ready, and as time goes on I become less excited, more quiet/lazy, and sometimes depressed. In the past I convinced myself that this is happening because I'm not with the right person, but I'm starting to think that the problem lies within my state of mind. My fiancée, 32 female, is the most beautiful, honest, loyal, committed, responsible, caring and amenable person I've ever been with. She's also great at getting along with my friends and family. We mostly enjoy the same kind of music, TV, movies and food, which is important to me. She thinks about the future a lot and is very goal-oriented, while I'm more of a day-to-day type person. We've been together for 4 years and living together for 3 years. She is a wonderful partner to live with in many ways. She wants marriage and kids, but that's never been a big priority or desire in my life, and I've been honest with her about that without ruling out the possibility. Another issue we have is I feel she's not independent enough and wants to spend more time with me than I do with her. She has a few old and new friends but doesn't spend much time with them, and she doesn't have many independent hobbies or obligations that keep her busy. I think if it were up to her, she would spend 95% of her free time with me, whereas I prefer to spend maybe 50% of my free time with her. Sometimes I wish we connected on a deeper, more intellectual level, but I'm not necessarily blaming her for that. I also wish we had a more similar sense of humor. Currently we are intimate about once per week, though sometimes it can be more or less, and at times she will complain that we're not intimate as often as we should be. I still find her attractive, but I've become less excited about the intimacy and find myself thinking about intimacy with other women, but never acting on it. Once again I find myself in this phase of boredom, depression, and less intimacy while I think more about our differences and what I wish was different about her. I then start to wonder if I'm with the right person, and my thoughts/feelings spiral downward from there. After being honest with her about how I was feeling, she was devastated and said that we want different things and we're probably not right for each other. I agreed with her and we sat next to each other mostly in silence for a long time. She brought up the idea of therapy for myself and/or our relationship, as she's done in the past, which I've considered but haven't acted on. She was very emotional then. She packed a bag and left but wouldn't tell me where she was going, I assumed to her mother's place. My natural instincts are telling me that this relationship should end because A, I should be happier and more excited about the relationship, and B, my partner is more motivated to get married and have kids than me, and I don't want to waste any more of her time if we're not on the same page at this point. Another part of me thinks our relationship was great and still has great potential, and that I'm ruining it with my negative state of mind and shallowness. Should I fight to save this relationship and work on myself, or just move on because we're not good for each other? Story 3. Male 29 wants a church marriage with female 28 after relationship of 7 years. Hi there. I've got a question to ask. But before that, some info prior. My family is cultural Catholic. Grandparents were practicing. Secularization has been a thing and less people practice their faith. I was raised culturally Catholic, but not that Catholic really in any substantial way. Did have my baptism, communion and confirmation, which I did get to choose. Practically I was kinda agnostic with a fondness for religion though. In my 20s I started identifying myself as a Catholic Christian again. I believe in God, pray. Go to church a few times a year, alone. I'm no perfect Catholic, that's for sure though. I'm one of the most religious folks I know on a personally close level. More religious than my parents, and far more religious than my peers, which tend to be anti-clerical and anatheistic. I 29 am engaged to marry my wife, 28. She is culturally Catholic. She likes that I have my faith. But she herself does not practice. On some occasions we pray together, or light a candle. But in some instances she feels I put too much into my faith. Example, when I want to go to Mass in a foreign country on a holiday, we have mild disagreements over these things. So we aren't perfectly yoked, I know. A big point in searching for a life partner in these secularized times were to avoid anatheistic women. I have stopped seeing a girl in the past as she made fun of another girl to me for her Catholicism. That was prior to my turn to faith, so we are going to wed. I have already talked to her about the importance of the sacrament, holy matrimony, and of raising children Catholic, baptismal middle names, etc. She tends to okay these things, to keep us from having to talk about it, to later put it up for discussion again. As it now stands, I've won. She has okayed church marriage, baptisms, middle names. But she's not that enthusiastic about it. And I know my surrounding isn't either. My parents and in-laws are not on board with it. Especially my father-in-law. So a church wedding is bound to be a plain ceremony, with a priest and 2 witnesses and nothing more. And another state wedding with a big party on a different date prior to the church wedding. But should we in this situation have a church wedding? There are also classes you have to attend prior to a church wedding. Could we freely attend those meetings and after that decide if we go ahead with a church wedding? Having a church wedding, as one of the two feels different about it, is difficult to me. Could we even baptize our future children if there was no church marriage? I expect it will, but some on the internet say it cannot be done. It was a bit of a rambling, but I hope you guys got enough info for advice. Thanks in advance.